Hi everyone, Cendril here. Welcome to another day in Stardew Valley. Looks like a storm is approaching. Thunder and lightning is expected. Spirits are in good humor today. Okay, so that'll be tomorrow. Talk with Penny. Have to go into town today. Don't work too hard. Eat something good for lunch. Thanks, Penny. I keep having this coffee table in my inventory. Put that there for now. I'll move it someplace else later, probably. Today's question is about modern AAA RPGs. So I'm really glad you become part of the community, as I've enclosed a 500 gold check from the Stardew Valley Agricultural Fund to help you continue work. You can buy some more seeds with it. Thanks, Mayor Lewis. I would love to give this back to somebody that could use it more than I could. Because we're doing really well. This is a very interesting topic, because there's a lot to go over, and we only got, you know, one episode, really, because I just do one episode of questions, to go over this. If some more people ask about it, want to hear some specifics, we can revisit this topic. But this person asked, why aren't AAA RPGs, in particular, modern AAA RPGs, why aren't they as good as the old RPGs? Now that's a slippery slope. First, we have to talk about, are modern RPGs worse than, let's say, SNES, PlayStation 1 era RPGs? We could probably include PlayStation 2 in that as well. Many people consider that the, quote, golden age, unquote, of RPGs. And it's tough to argue. There were some fantastic RPGs during that time. I mean, some I've played on the channel. Such as, Lunar 2, Final Fantasy 4. I could take the rest of this episode going over titles, so let's not do that. And there were a lot of, you know, cult classics in that time too. But let's you know, get kind of back on track. So step one, are modern AAA RPGs as good as their counterparts? Well, it depends. Let's just take the point of view of the question, okay? And then there's of course the other point of view that is, you know, yeah, they are as good. You know, here's why, blah blah blah. We're just gonna take the point of view from the person that asked the question. Why aren't they as good? I think there's a lot to answer that question with. I think this was in the comment as well, that graphics are focused on too much and not story. I don't know if that's the case. I think part of it, and remember, you're getting the perspective of somebody that has played RPGs almost as long as they've been alive. Ever since I was a kid, I've played RPGs. The first RPG, I always forget if it was Final Fantasy or Dragon Warrior, aka Dragon Quest 1, because I played them around the same time. But I've played RPGs for the better part of... Well, not for the better part, but I've basically made RPGs for 2+ decades. Those of you that don't know, I'm 30. So, for around 2 decades... 20 years, I've played RPGs, so I have a lot of perspective on this. I think part of the problem with RPGs, and this is going to sound weird, but just follow with me on this. The stories are too convoluted these days. I think RPG makers, not the RPG maker, you know, like indie RPGs, but just AAA RPG, let's take... I don't know. I'm trying to think of a recent game. That's not recent. That's PlayStation 2, but it's the first game that comes to mind when I think of this. I think of Xenosaga in that trilogy. They just went... They tried to put like 50 different plot points, it feels like, all into one game. I think they AAA RPG people try to write this grandiose story, especially these days. When I say modern, I'm talking the past few years. You don't get that many modern AAA RPGs as it is. Not your traditional ones. We'll go into how they've evolved here in a little bit. Let's just take, like, you know, turn-based or action RPGs. Like, okay, here's a great one. Final Fantasy 13. It's like you try to have all these plot points. We would say, what, like a handful of plot points for the first half of the game? Because you have everybody separated, and then you kind of pull the party together. But even then, the story of Final Fantasy 13 is too convoluted for its own good. It tries to be too fancy. It tries to tackle these really heady topics, I think. Like, I can't follow the story of Final Fantasy 13. Maybe if I went back and played it. That'll happen someday on the channel. But it tries too hard. I think AAA RPGs try too hard these days. You can tell a good story without trying to wrap in 50,000 different plot points, and these plot points that I just can't wrap my head around. You can have a fantastic story without all of that minutia. Like, you can. We've seen it done. I think that was... You could have these powerful RPGs. Like I said, Final Fantasy IV. It's an old game. It's a powerful RPG. I feel so. Lunar 1 has a plot point you can follow, but it has these side strands that you can also follow, that you can, like, wrap your head around, that are very powerful. It's not too difficult to follow. I think that's one of the biggest problems with modern AAA RPGs. The stories are too hard to follow. We'll find out if Final Fantasy 15 does that as well. If you have, like, all these plot points that are just way too darn hard to follow, and you can't really follow what's going on. Like, I think that's one of the biggest problems with AAA RPGs. 2 is a lot of them are trying to be how do I want to put this? They're trying to be sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there. I think story is the biggest deal. Wrong place. I'm here to give the fossil. And I'm not in the museum. They're just not being what... They don't have stories you can follow. And I think that's a huge deal. Give me a story I can follow. And, you know, those of you on the channel know, I'm not, you know, I can follow stories. Aw. It's cute because I guess we have, no conversation, so we just kiss. That's great. That's cool. I like that. I can follow a story. I can know what's going on, but when they try to have, like, all these underlying tones and stuff, I don't know. It's hard for me to explain. The best way I can put it is AAA RPG stories these days are too hard to follow. Like your Final Fantasies are too hard to follow. Period. You just can't follow them. And if you can follow them, kudos to you. I can't. And I think that's why I feel a lot of people feel like the RPGs they grew up with, these masterful games, the RPGs today aren't as good. I think a big part of it is story. They don't tell a story like they used to. Not well. Like, they tell a story, but it's just like all over the place. I end up liking characters more than I do the story, because the story is just all over the place. It's like they can't stay focused on the main overarching plot point, and it crumbles. That's a big part of it. Now, that being said, one of the big things that RPGs have evolved. And with all the complaints I have about the story, there are, you don't get those turn-based RPGs like you used to. Not in AAA titles, anyway. They're all action. They're more, action, real-time, not turn-based. Or pseudo. And I've talked about that before. So, let's talk about, I think a lot of the characters oh no, I remember where I was going to go. I was going to go to Bethesda. RPGs have also kind of evolved, with the Bethesda model. You have your Fallout. You have your Elder Scrolls. Those are different. Those are on a massive scale, and they're more free-roam RPGs. You see that from AAA titles a lot as well. It's just RPGs have changed so much. So very much. It's hard to pin down. I don't think they... It's not that RPGs aren't as good as they were before. This is my opinion. It's just that they're drastically different now. And not all of it is for the better. In fact, I think a lot of it is for worse. A lot of this has to do with just companies now. They don't just put together those stories like they used to. 15, I think, is going to try. I really do. I think Final Fantasy 15 is going to try, because that's the next AAA RPG from a big franchise we're getting. is Final, AAA RPG. You think AAA RPG, you think Final Fantasy. Well, here it comes. And I'll be streaming it, so you can try to follow along with me. Do they fall into the same trap that I talked about here? Whereas the story tries to do too much. Story is super important in an RPG, but it can try to do too many things at once. Because if you can't follow the story, then there's no point. There's no point in telling this 200-hour epic story if I can't follow it for a lick. What's the point then? You can tell a grandiose story without losing your audience. It's been done. It's been done in previous generations. Like I said, Lunar 1. Final Fantasy 4, your older Final Fantasies. You could tell a grandiose story and still have it be able to follow. That's something. Here we go. Sorry, my mind's just kind of all over the place with this topic. I really apologize. Because I'm thinking through it as I'm doing this episode. Here's one of the biggest changes to RPGs. You don't have a bad guy anymore. You just don't. You don't have a bad guy to, latch onto and be like, you're what I'm trying to take down. You don't get that anymore, for the most part. And this is, again, it's just the writers trying to be too cute. It's, well, you know, this guy's actually an anti-hero. He just goes against what your characters are feeling. Well, this guy's not really all evil. He has his motivations, and some of them are pure. It just tries to be too cute. If I'm playing an RPG, I want a bad guy to hate. Period. Because I want to be the hero. Let me be the hero, and give me a bad guy that I need to destroy. Give me a bad guy that wants to destroy the world. No, that's been done millions of times before. You know why it's been done millions of times before? Because it works! It works! Oops. I'll just end this day here then, as Penny's trying to... I thought Penny entered from the other side. Anyway. Because it works! Give me a bad guy to hate. It works in an RPG, because you want to play as the hero. That's the biggest thing about role-playing games. To me, you usually want to play as the hero. At least I do. I think a lot of other people do as well. You go into this role of this character who's fighting for whatever. Fighting for his kingdom, fighting for his freedom, fighting for the world, fighting for all of the above. But that's, you know, you take on that character. And you have these you know, modern AAA RPGs that, A, you don't know who the bad guy is, so when the reveal comes, it's lackluster at best. Or B, they keep trying to throw curse at you. It's like, well, this guy's not really that bad. Are what you're doing bad? You know, is what you're doing all that much different? Don't try to play psychological games with me. I don't want to do that in my RPG. Like, that's not why I play an RPG. There's other genres for that. Or you could have like a subgenre of RPGs if you want to do that. Sure. But when I play like a AAA RPG, I'm the good guy, that's the bad guy. I'm trying to get to him. Period. Like, and you don't have to reveal the bad guy, you know, at the very beginning of the game. You can work your way up the ladder. I get that. But you have to show me the bad guy before, oh, I don't know, 30 minutes before the game ends, or at least the main story ends. Like, you gotta give me something. Have him show up and blast my party down. People hate that. That's like, oh, I'm forced to lose this battle. Why am I forced to lose this battle? It's because it gives you a sense of progression. Like, after that character blasts my party down, 16 hours from now, when I whoop his butt, it's gonna be glorious. Because the characters are stronger. Like, I get that. You have to show me the bad guy. You have to show me what it is I'm trying to stop as the hero. Modern AAA RPGs don't do that anymore. And I hate it. There we go. It took me, I don't know, the better part of this episode to finally get to that kernel, but there it is. I found it. Because you don't show bad guys anymore. And we don't play as good guys anymore. That's it. That's how I grew up with RPGs. I'm playing as a hero. Now again, it may be like 10 hours into the game before I find out, oh, this is what's really trying to destroy the world. Now how are we going to stop it? And you work your way up. You start with, you know, fighting imps. And then, you know, one sub-boss. And then, you know, a major boss. And then that major boss's boss. Like, you work your way up. That's fun. I love that in RPGs. Until you get to the main, you know, bad guy, final boss at the end of the game that's trying to destroy the world, universe, space-time continuum, you know, whatever it may be. and stop him. You don't do that anymore. You just don't. They try to pull all this cloak and dagger stuff, and you end up feeling frustrated. You end up feeling like there's not a story that, like I said, that you can follow. Because there's no goal. You have little, immediate goals, and that gets you to the end of the story, and it's like, oh, this person was the bad guy all along, and then you just feel cheated. I don't want that anymore. Yeah, I didn't like it to begin with, personally, but AAA RPGs try to do that too much now. Get back to your roots. Show me a bad guy, and I think 15 will try to do this. I really hope so. From their whole tagline, fight to take your kingdom back or something like that. Yeah, that's what I want. And all the steps we take along the way are to reach that goal. Alright, I'm in. But a lot of times in these AAA RPGs these days, they take this roundabout way to try to, I don't know, get you to sympathize with the bad guy or something? I don't know. I don't know what sometimes the stories are trying to do. And that's the problem. That's a big problem. I had a lot of fun with this episode. I hope you did too. Took me a while to get here, but we got here. So there you go. I think that's why modern AAA RPGs aren't as good as they used to be. Stories are too convoluted. One thing I really didn't touch about, some of the characters just aren't likable, like older characters used to be, I think. But maybe that's just me aging. The characters don't speak to me like they used to. It's probably a big part of it. Just age gap, and because of their target audience. But you don't feel like you're playing as the good guys anymore. You don't feel like you're playing as the heroes, and that's how we grew up with RPGs. The people that I'm speaking to, the people around my age group, around 30. We grew up being the good guys, and we don't get to do that too much in AAA RPGs anymore. And sometimes it's the battle system sucks, but that's a whole nother topic. We can get to that some other day. Of how bad some of the mechanics are now in AAA RPGs. The newest Star Ocean comes to mind, Integrity and Faithlessness. It's a shame. That game had so much potential. So disappointing. Would you like to hear me talk about that game? Because I rented it, played it completely, and I can tell you about it. So, if you'd like to hear me lament on Star Ocean 5, right, it's 5. Anyway, the newest one, Integrity and Faithlessness, I could talk about that. Let me know in the comments below. Hope you enjoyed this topic. I'm not saying personally that modern AAA RPGs aren't as good as they were in the past. A lot of things have changed, and I don't know. It feels like some of the stuff that made the games great previously was lost somewhere along the way, and I talked about a few of those things. So don't yell at me in the comments, oh, modern AAA RPGs are better, and this is why. I don't need that. Because you're probably right. You're right in whatever you're going to say. Because I can only talk about so many things in this 20 to 30 minute episode. This is a topic that we could break down, and I could literally debate back and forth for days. On both sides. I just take the question and try to answer it the best I can to how I feel. So, and just, taking a step back and looking at things. Anyway, that's what I think about that question. Next time, I'm going to be talking about a different set of RPGs and my opinions. I was just asked for my opinions in general on those. So that'll be in some ways, in a lot of ways, an easier question for me to answer because it's more my opinions instead of me trying to analyze. Not that I can't analyze a topic such as the one I just did I would have to really sit down and analyze. It'd be much better to do on a stream. Because I could get feedback and then bounce ideas back and forth. That would be much better for that. But I will be talking about a different style of RPGs and my opinions on them. Until then, I'm Cendril 9. Remember to shoot for the stars and take care, everyone.